Sudarshan Sathe, and I'm here with Mr. Ratanjit Sandhi, whom, as you know by now, I call Bhai Sahab. Bhai Sahab, we started this journey of exploration into this whole realm called happiness, and you started to build the building blocks, the stepping stones in the spelling of the word happiness itself. So we covered H for humility, A for appreciation, the first letter P for purpose, the second letter P for perspective, the central letter I for integrity, which you explained was another way of saying integrating with the divine within. Now we are on the letter N, the letter N of happiness. What does N stand for?
N stands for neutrality.
Neutrality. Okay.
Now, we generally have opinion about everything. And the amazing part is the less you know, generally more you know.
More opinions you
more
have.
opinions you have.
Yeah.
And like if in watching a game of Indians, you are in the sitting and 40,000 people are sitting. If you want to find out from people what do they think of how the brain works, they'll all tell you how the brain works. But then there are a couple of neurosurgeons or neurologists sitting there who specialize in brain. And if you ask them how the brain works, they say, well, we are still deciphering. We are still trying to understand. We don't quite understand about brain.
Right.
Right? So the more you know, the more your knowledge is, less you're opinionated about this thing.
Right.
So with that understanding, we have to realize that in this human experience, in this human system which is gifted to us,
Hello and welcome to our continuing conversation on the subject of happiness. It is a subject that is as interesting as it is elusive. I am your host, Sudarshan Sathe, and I'm here with Mr. Ratanjit Sandhi, who most of you know by now I call Bhai Sahab. Bhai Sahab, we began this journey of exploration into this concept of happiness. We looked at happiness as an acronym, with each letter signifying a way station, a stepping stone, a window, and thus we covered H for humility, A for appreciation, the first letter P for purpose, the second letter P for perspective, the middle and the central letter I for integrity, which, as you explained, is another way of saying integrating with the divine within.
us.
Now we are on the letter N. Bhai Sahab, what does the letter N stand for?
N is, it approaches more towards who we are. In fact, by getting to N, we are able to get into integrity, integrate with the divine. But N really stands for neutrality.
Neutrality.
Means, in simple terms, we have opinion about everything.
Right.
And generally, the less we know, the more stronger opinion we have.
Right.
And the more we know, then our opinion is less. We generally say, well, I'm still learning. I'm still getting to the path, and this is all I know this far. It's like if you are watching a game, in a ball game in a stadium, there are 40,000 people, and if you ask general public about how brain works, they'll all give you opinion as if they are expert on brain.
Everyone will have an opinion.
Everyone. But if you happen to find a neurologist sitting there, and if you asked him the same question or her the same question, and they will say, well, look, we are still learning about it. We hardly know much about the brain. how it functions and this and this. So this is how more you know, the less you actually know.
More you think you know.
More you think, but even the more you study. I had a friend who we were classmates in high school. So we met after a long time, and he finished his PhD in physics. And he loved to have a couple of drinks. And after he had his drinks, he says, you know, Ratanjit, this PhD is a big nothing. I said, what do you mean? He says, all I know after PhD is that I know nothing. So I said, what do you mean? He says, in high school, when they taught us physics, they brought a pinhole camera saying that light always travels in a straight line. And in college, they said, well, no, it is a wave. They showed a penny in front of the light, and the back of the penny is lit. And now, when I'm doing my PhD, and I came across only hypotheses and theories which explain, at best, maybe 75, 85% of all the known phenomena. None of these hypotheses explain 100%. So in a sense, we really don't know how light works.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's quantum mechanics.
The quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is that human system, with all our faculty, all our brain, all our intelligence, nature has not designed it to know the answer. So if we are continuously judging people, we are out of our expertise, whereas that's all we do.
So you're saying we do not have the capacity to truly judge people,
Right?
to form opinions about them.
Form opinion. We categorize people good, bad, and this and that. So we label them, and then it's for our own convenience. We categorize broader group. All women are like that. All men are like that. All children are like that. All generalization, right?
Right.
Whereas the nature, as we talked about, has only created masterpieces. They have not repeated anything. Even the leaves on the same tree are all different.
Right.
That's why 7 billion plus people, each has a different fingerprint. Right. Each of us. How is it possible? So each of us is an original masterpiece, cannot be judged. We only can explore a human being and learn from them. And the only thing we are equipped with, it doesn't matter how bright your brain is, doesn't matter how many PhDs you have earned, all you will have is the capacity to serve, to add the highest value. And that's our purpose, as we talked in purpose.
Right.
So the moment we sway away from purpose, we lose happiness. Or happiness does not, we become unhappy by going through the path of judging. So neutrality means that you don't categorize anything good or bad. You find goodness in every situation.
Okay. Right. But I have to ask you this question because I'm struggling with this.
Right.
We know that there is right, there is wrong. At least we are taught that from the beginning.
Right.
Right, wrong, good, evil. We have convictions. So how do we maintain neutrality in a world that we comprehend through this bifurcated understanding of good and evil, right and wrong? This is the right thing to do, that is the wrong thing to do.
Well, you have a very good question. You know, in history, we have Hitlers of the world and we have Mahatma Gandhis of the world. So if we are looking at goodness in Hitler and bad things in Gandhi, so we are off the chart. But the thing is this, that when you are healthy, when you are normal, there are goodness in you. When you become sick, see, even in this human body, we get rid of a kidney. Because instead of removing poison from our system, it begins to add poison.
Right.
So this will kill you. We try to treat it, and then we take it out. So obviously, there are going to be situations that somebody has gone haywire. In our human body, there are trillions of cells,
Right.
and there's life in them.
Right.
And they protect our body against the attack of all kinds of ailments. They sacrifice their very being to protect this body.
So good and bad in each individual package,
Right.
rather than saying this package is good and that package is bad.
But not only that, you have to evaluate constantly. Now, taking this forward a little bit, once a while in our human body there comes a cell, we call it a cancer cell, right?
Yeah.
Now, we have to remove it. So there are going to be instances like this, but we very quickly judge good and bad. Now, do you know why we do that?
No, please tell me.
Because this human body, in order for it to survive, it's designed to make instant decisions. Survival. So something comes that says, quickly decides it's going to harm me or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Based on experience, based on these things. So we apply the same thing to when we come across a human being. We say, oh, he's arrogant, or she's arrogant, or she's bad, or she's good, or she's well-dressed, or she's poorly dressed. So just like a cobbler will always judge you by the shoes you are wearing.
Right.
So we have our own perspective of things, how we judge.
Right.
So everybody judges differently.
So you're saying that we judge for survival,
Right.
and that is important as a matter of survival. But then we take that faculty and smear the whole world with it.
Whole world with it.
Okay.
So when we meet somebody, our normal reaction is, what would I gain from this person? We are off our purpose.
Yeah.
Our purpose is to add value. Purpose is to serve. Purpose is to love.
Right.
Right? So now, once you are so much embedded in your purpose, then automatically you will evaluate, how do I add value to this person?
So you are essentially stopping the normal judging process.
Right.
And
Asking this question, how do I add value?
so we reverse the normal, what's in it for me, to the higher purpose, how do I add the most value to this situation or this and that helps you be neutral and judge a situation with neutrality.
Neutrality.
Okay.
See, we are run by our habits.
Right.
So nothing wrong or right with us. We just have this habit of finding what is good in it for me. That's a habit.
Right.
So the moment we are able to systematically change this to another habit and replace it by this habit, how do I add value to this person? So as a consequence, that's where your true happiness lies. Because the moment you find joy, when you help somebody, when you make a difference to somebody, you experience joy. Different than pleasure.
Different from pleasure, sensory pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure comes from if somebody gives me a gift, or somebody feeds me, I eat ice cream, it gives me pleasure. But as we said, the window of pleasure is limited. If you keep on eating the ice cream you love, you'll be sick.
Right.
Right?
You can't eat 2 gallons of it.
2 gallons of it. But the joy side is unlimited. That's where your true joy of your soul comes in.
Okay, so I'm now seeing the connection to integrity and integrating with the divine within. So if you are with the divine within, then automatically there is no judgment, because as you explained, of many different light bulbs of different color, different wattage. It's the same electricity that enlivens, to use your word. So similarly, if the same divinity is in all,
Yes.
then slowly the instinct to judge becomes dimmer and dimmer in us.
And also, if you focus instead of finding fault, finding goodness in any situation.
Finding goodness in any situation.
Any situation. So, rose grows in dirt, and it has thorn.
Right.
But if your focus is on rose, it's a very pleasant. It gives you joy. Similarly, you see, like we are both chemical engineers or chemists. One of the most deadly poison is potassium cyanide.
Right.
Right? So as chemists, we find goodness in it. As a consequence, this has become a very valuable tool to produce intermediate for life-saving medicines.
Right.
It extracts gold from the ores.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we don't call it a bad thing.
In fact, the poison of the snakes is extracted and turned into medicine.
Medicine.
So poison is not necessarily bad for those whose life it is saving.
Right, right. So the purpose is to add value, and that purpose is only achieved through finding goodness in every situation.
And every person.
Every person. So that is where, now how do we get there?
That's the important question.
That's the most important question. See, we have our brain constantly has a habit of thought. It goes into random thoughts, thinking. And there are good thoughts and bad thoughts. The only way to remain in the joyful mode and value-adding mode is not get attached to these thoughts. And all these saints and all these great people have told us that become a watcher,
a witness
of these thoughts.
So disconnect
from thoughts. So they come and go within your mind. Just stay away. And that is how you detach from your mind. Mind is where your ego resides. Mind is where your poison is collected. Mind is where, so the moment you begin to watch it, rather than become controlled by it, you have control on your happiness.
So become a neutral observer.
Neutral observer, that's where neutrality comes.
Okay, that's how the neutrality comes.
Right.
I'm reminded of a line from a poem from an Irish poet laureate, William Butler Yeats, who said, "The fools are full of passionate intensity, while the best lack all conviction." And so that's what he was talking about. The best are neutral observers of this mental phenomena we call mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, what happens is somebody comes and shouts at you, blames you, and you can go into argument. I haven't done this. How dare you say this? So now you are engaging in this. Stay neutral and ask yourself, how do I add value in this situation? Would I add value by staying calm? Would I add value in having a smile? Or would I add value in listening to the cause? Would I add value to understanding why he is or she is mad? So that is where we need to be.
Okay.
Because every time you trigger the anger, which is proposed by somebody else, you are bringing that poison within you.
That anger is reflecting into your mind.
Your mind.
And you are thinking, now you are angry.
You are angry. And as anger or prejudice or all these things produce chemicals in our brain.
Cortisol. Yes. Yeah.
And if you continue to stay in those conditions, all these disease come in you. Dis-ease.
Dis-ease, yeah.
They make, when your body is not at ease, you bring this disease.
Wow, that's a wonderful, wonderful line.
Right.
If you're always at ease, you will never have
Disease.
disease. Yeah.
Disease.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why you are able to cure yourself of many of these, all your ailments are because of the dis-ease caused by your brain, your thinking,
Yeah. The turmoil in the brain.
turmoil in the brain.
So this idea of being a neutral observer, it's easier said than done, like all the other. So how are you proposing that people in our audience or those listening practice something every day that helps them begin to disengage from this mental phenomena called mind and the comings and goings of the mind?
It begins with having an exercise of watching your thoughts.
Watching your thoughts.
And don't get attached to them. Don't categorize them good or bad. Just don't get attached to it.
Don't get attached to it. So if you feel angry, you're saying you have to recognize that you are not angry. You are seeing an angry thought pass across the screen of your mind.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not going to happen first day.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people advise meditation. A lot of people advise just going in the nature, staying close to nature, and whatever works for you. Ultimately, the mission is to detach yourself from these thoughts and become neutral and enjoy the unending joy.
And I really appreciate you saying that, because everyone should know that nothing worthwhile is easy.
Right.
But the prize of happiness is indeed such a big prize that this exercise and this way of being and thinking is definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. I have really enjoyed this conversation on neutrality, and I can't wait to go to the next letter of happiness and explore that idea. And thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope you have enjoyed it. Now we'll go inside the studio and take some audience questions.
You have become a pro, Sudarshan.
Hope you found our discussion entertaining, enlightening, enjoyable. I would love to have some questions from the floor.
I have a question.
Okay.
I've heard of situations where somebody is in a relationship with another, whether professional or a marriage, and they are naturally neutral in the decision making process. But then they come to a point in life where they have this business they're running that they are not an active player and they don't love it. You know, they're in a marriage where they say, how did I get to this point? How do you balance being neutral in your decisions or in your interactions and still being an active player in your own life?
In other words, what you're saying is if you are married and when you become partner in business, how do you separate the two? Or
Well, I heard you saying, you know, staying neutral when you meet somebody. But when you have this ongoing in-depth relationship,
oh, how do you stay neutral with your spouse? How do you stay
With-
neutral with your business
you know,
partner?
or if people are saying, well, I just went with the flow, but I didn't stay true to myself, and I was living their life, or I was living their business, and it wasn't my passion.
Well, see, the thing which you have to realize is that we are still from the old paradigm. You have to buy the fact that my role in any situation, whether it is a marriage or parenting or business, is exactly the same. It is to add the highest value. It is serving them unconditionally. That is our role. So you have to ask yourself constantly, how do I serve them? Am I question the last service you provided and upgrade it? So your competition is always with your last best. So you're constantly upgrading yourself, constantly adding higher value, and then expecting nothing in return. Our biggest problem is that we are constantly weighing that I did so much for this person. They didn't even appreciate it. They didn't even thank me. See, we gave example of this beautiful rose. This also tells us how nature has designed us by design, because nature has designed everything, including this rose bush. But when this rose bush produces this rose, it is the success of the rose bush, right? But it does not keep it for itself. It freely gives away its beauty, its fragrance. And as the gardener would tell you, you pluck the rose, it'll give you more. And it does not discriminate who comes near it, whether it's a dirty person or a criminal comes near it, or a pious or pope comes near it, the fragrance and beauty remains the same. So that is how we have been designed. But what we do is we go against our design. The moment we go against our design, we will have stress. We will have frustration. A practical example is the car is designed to go forward, but it can also go in reverse. But if you drove from here to Pittsburgh in reverse, against its design, what will happen? You'll have a stiff neck and an accident. So that is what happens to us, because we are designed to add value. We are not designed to judge. We are not designed to get involved in any of these exercises where opinion are given and opinionated. So if we stay focused on adding value, everything works out. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sudarshan, you want to have a comment?
Well, I would go back to what we said in the earlier programs. When someone asks the question, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? The answer is practice, practice, practice. So these things, the payoff, if you will, is really big. So obviously the work is hard. And if I can give you an example in my life, if you're sitting on the couch and you have a very young child who is playing and he has a spoon and a container and he's just making some noise. If you say, why are you making noise? Don't stop making noise. Now the child is unhappy, you are unhappy. If you just, as we talked earlier, if you just remain a neutral observer and just enjoy the child, enjoy looking at him, enjoy him playing with, and it also tells you, I think most of us have experienced, you can buy them hundreds of dollars of toys, but the thing that they most love is a little container and a spoon and making noise. So I think that if we start to practice neutrality, and this is what I think anyone who has practiced will experience, we change the reality that is confronting us. If we are not constantly correcting, judging, nagging, then the person also responds differently. It's not that we are static individuals. We are constantly changing. And if our environment changes, if our environment becomes very joyful, which is our natural state, then I think we become joyful. So
Next question.
Next question.
Yeah, my question is, so is neutrality different from indifference? Because being indifferent is actually not good, you know. And also my other question is, supposing you're in a group and you feel that something that is being said is not right, shouldn't you speak up? And I mean,
Correct.
you're not judging, but you should speak up and give your opinion and give a, you know, reason for why you think that person is not right. So how can we change that? Because you are now, people might think that you're judging someone because you're arguing, because you're presenting your viewpoint.
Good question. I think the first thing is neutrality is different in the sense that we are not judging, but we are not staying aside, not doing anything. We are engaged in asking ourselves, how do I add the highest value? So you are still embedded in the purpose of your life. So that's the difference. Neutral.
Both you actually, there is inaction.
Yeah, and
Right?
that other one is inaction. But in this, you are engaged deeply by thinking, how do I add value? How do I serve? Because that's your role. So you stay steadfast to your role, your purpose, but without judging what they have said. Whatever they have said, if all you are gathering from that is a door to enter to add value, how do you enter? What is that would make a difference here? And if somebody said wrong and insulted you, then basically you still ask, how do I add the highest value? Your entry door, your action always begins with that thought. So you can never go wrong then. Because you're not again judging them. You're asking, now this is being said, this is how it is. How do I add the highest value? And many times it could be very simple to have a sense of humor at that point. So neutralize the whole environment, and then you can enter that. Sudarshan?
No, I think you said it perfectly. Neutrality is not indifference. Indifference is a negative emotion. Indifference is, okay, whatever happens to you, I don't care. That is indifference. But neutrality is, as Bhai Sahib said, you're constantly thinking about how to add value, how to make it better.
So we have a very short window. Let's take one more question.
My question has been partly answered, so I'll rephrase it a little bit differently. We learned that most of our reactionary actions are because of our nature to react, right? The fight or flight instinct that we have inherently developed over evolution.
Right.
So when we come to this question of neutrality, right, it seems totally contrary to that primal concept of our evolutionary behavior. So is it our interpretation of those events that cause us to act the way we do, thinking that we are facing danger and stress?
But there are two sides of us. From body's protection mechanism, the physical body has to react to protect you. If there is an accident or something is coming to you, you have to move away, or something is hot, you have to move away. So that judgment is always there to protect your body. But here we are talking about a judgment which is in our thought process, in our evaluating, in your classification of people, good or bad, or situation good or bad. So that is where this thought process has value, because that's where you control your thinking process. Your thought process has to be embedded in adding the highest value rather than judging. Sudarshan?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point that we talked about. At a certain basic minimum level, the fight or flight survival instinct is what protects us, and that's instinctive. That's an instinct in us. But we mostly live by reason, and at the reason level, if we can practice, as Bhai Saab said, to be a neutral observer, we will begin to have happiness in ourselves and happiness in our environment, because our environment, believe me, would be extremely relaxed, that there is no judgment coming from you. There is nothing but how can I help, to use Bhai Saab's phrase, how can I add the highest value. So I think that is the key to this, is that we don't let go of a survival instinct. As Bhai Saab said, if something is hot, you remove your hand. But at the reason level, at the day-to-day level, we can start to create happiness and spread happiness if we just stop being judgmental, practice neutrality. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for your time and attention.
And we are coming back and after a break for a second.
For the second,
And
the
we are
letter
going,
E.
going to talk about E for expectation.
Hello and welcome to our continuing discussion on the interesting and elusive topic of happiness. I am your host, Sudarshan Sathe, and I'm here with Mr. Ratanjit Sondhi, whom, as you know, I call Bhai Sahab. Bhai Sahab, way back when we started discussing the idea of happiness, you revealed that the so-called secret of happiness is no secret at all. It is right there in the spelling of the word happiness in plain view. And you started to chart a path to this state of mind that we call happiness. And you taught that H stood for humility, A for appreciation, the first letter P for purpose, the second letter P for perspective, the middle and central letter and a central idea was integrity, which was integrating with the divine within. Then we did N for neutrality, as in being a neutral observer to the phenomena of the mind and being calm and steady and steadfast in face of all these comings and goings of the mind. Now we take one more step, and the step is with the letter E. What does the E stand for?
The root cause of all our unhappiness is our expectations.
Wonderful.
E stands for expectation. We have no control on others, whereas we have lofty expectations from them. And when they don't fulfill those, we are unhappy. Whereas we also have expectation from us, and we casually, our mind is fully trained in giving alibis why we were not able to deliver what is expected of us.
Yeah. If I can stop you, because this was such an important insight, I don't want me and our audience to miss it. We don't control others, yet we have expectations from others.
Right.
How logically incongruent is that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are constantly caught. Say, I expected, and you cry, you mourn, you do all kinds of things. We have expectations from our spouses, we have expectations from our parents, our children, our neighbors, our friends, our country, our presidents, from everyone, right?
Our players.
Our players. And we get so turned off, worked up, and say, why can't they deliver? They make so much money.
Right, right.
And so these expectations from others is what I call them erroneous expectations.
Okay.
The only person we control is us. So we should at least first take hold of delivering the expectation we have from us,
Right.
right?
That's the one thing we control.
That's one thing we control.
Yeah.
And it is through delivering those expectations we control others. As a husband, I have expectation from my spouse, but I don't control her. But if I control the husband side of me and deliver unconditional serving, loving, and begin to enjoy that, then I'm delivering my responsibilities. And as a consequence, happiness comes.
Okay, so if we deliver on the expectations we have from
us.
ourselves,
Right.
we get the others to deliver on the expectations we have from them.
They have more incentive to do that.
Right, right.
See, I call it in simple terms, you cannot have a spouse, whereas that's what we have. We have a spouse. You cannot have a spouse, you can only be a spouse.
That's intriguing. Can you explain that?
Well, I can only be a husband. I cannot have a wife. When I have a wife, I have ownership attached to it.
To have is to own.
Have is to own. This is my wife. This expected to do these things. Whereas I can only be a husband. I cannot have friends. I can only be a friend. If I am a friend to you means you can depend on me. I add value to you.
Yes.
I automatically have a friend in you.
Right. You receive friendship.
You receive
By
friendship.
first giving friendship.
So if you see all your closest friends, they have done something to you to become those close friends.
Right.
Their reliability is there for you.
Yeah.
So this thought process, expectation thought process, wakes us up to tell us that the only control we have is on ourselves, if that. There also we don't many times.
Right.
So our expectation should not ever be from anyone else but ourselves.
And in real life, would we find that us delivering on those expectations would, as you said, improve the chance that the others would deliver on our expectations of them?
That if you have that expectation going with that thought process, you are in the wrong path to begin with.
Okay. Okay. I was struggling with that.
Yeah. So you don't go with that expectation. They may come to you.
Okay.
There is a better chance for others to deliver because you have always been steadfast with what is expected from you.
So you are saying that we eliminate this polarity of I will do this for you and you do this for me.
Reciprocation.
Okay. So if we just have no expectations from them and we just have expectations only from ourselves, then that would lead to happiness.
See, you have to go back to the earlier letters.
Yeah.
I stands for integration.
With the divine within.
So you become one. So you consider everyone as a part of one because you see the same divinity in others. That's what makes you one. Your body separates you.
Yeah.
But what enlivens you unites you. Because what enlivens you is the same power which enlivens somebody else. So if you focus on that power at all times, then you are one.
That's wonderful. So we are separated in form, but united in essence.
Essence, yeah.
Okay.
Essence. So in oneness, Sudarshan, see, the example I gave earlier is this human body is one,
Right.
right? So now I have an itch on my eye, I go and relieve the itch
With your finger.
with my finger.
Okay.
Now in the worldly sense, when I have itch on my finger, I expect the eyes to come and relieve me.
How interesting.
So in oneness, that is not possible.
Right.
So oneness, something else, this hand may come and relieve me. So you keep on doing goodness without expectation, and somewhere else is going to give you goodness. That's
So
how
there
it
is
works.
no reciprocity
There is no reciprocity.
in oneness.
Oneness.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
expectation is the root ingredients for expecting reciprocity.
Right.
So the moment you eliminate that, because in oneness that does not exist.
Okay. I have a feeling that we are going to get a lot of questions from our audience because I think this is the one thing that a lot of people truly struggle with because right from the earliest childhood, you have parental expectations, we have exam expectations, we have teachers' expectations, later on we have spousal expectations, then we have our children's expectations of us that we will do that. And we are constantly buffeted by them. So that's going to be a challenge to relieve all these expectations.
Yeah, see, ultimately, high achievers or the gurus who teach this high achievement tell you have higher expectation from your children, higher expectation from your employees, higher expectation from your team, and that's how they are going to deliver. But see, instead of that, you can achieve a better outcome by positioning them with a mindset of adding the highest value. So have them perform better than their last best constantly. If you can cultivate that habit in your children, in your spouse, in your fellow human beings, workers, in your company employees, then automatically you'll far exceed expectations, because expectation is still limited to your imagination.
Right, right.
Whereas doing better than your last best supersedes all that.
Right, right. Now, I'm seeing that if you create an expectation, however high that expectation may be, it is still kind of a whip.
Right.
But if you withdraw that completely, if you eliminate that completely, then the divine being that this person is, and once he gets the mindset of adding highest value, would automatically deliver the best.
Right. See, that's how these Japanese automakers have been able to produce constantly better than expected.
Right.
Better than expected, right?
Better than expected. Yeah.
So how they do it is they have implemented, let's make it better, whatever you have done. So these employees, when they go home, they improve their lawnmower. They improve their kitchen gadgets, because that's their mindset is embedded in that. They don't stop anywhere.
Okay, okay. So now just going to the converse of it.
Okay.
If we stop expectations from all the others, they will stop their expectations of us? Would that happen as a mirror image?
Well, I don't know whether you are still talking about reciprocity.
Reciprocity, yeah, yeah.
So don't go there, because that is other side of the same coin.
Right.
The thing which we have to embed in ourselves and everybody around us is to make their best better, add the highest value.
Okay.
Because there is a hidden joy in that, Sudarshan.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, once you get addicted to this, and you are constantly bettering yourself, you become a masterpiece at everything you do.
Right.
So progress happens, success happens. Expectation is also created to achieve successes, right?
Right.
But they limit you, because as long as you met the expectation, you are happy and everybody's happy, so to speak.
Right.
But if you have exceeded the expectation, that's where the leadership happens.
Right.
That's where highest recognition happens.
Right.
And you cannot exceed expectation until you are embedded in making your best better, adding the highest value. So what have you done yesterday? Today you're going to even go further, add the highest value. Now, there is a catch here. If I am honest,
Okay.
and I'm really adding the highest value, right? So then I have to bring everything on the table, all my education, all my experience, all my energy to make my best.
Right. Right.
So if I have already consumed everything, what else is there in me to make it better? So that is when you reach the unlimited divine power present in you.
The infinite divine power.
Divine power present in you.
Yeah. The inexhaustible divine power.
Exactly. You don't get there until you have exhausted everything you have.
Yeah. It's as if we exhaust everything in our pocket,
Yeah.
then we go to the bank. Yeah.
So that's where you are. It also helps you to reconnect to that power. It also makes you aware that that's the power. You have seen these great scientists who are doing research day and night, and they get exhausted and they can't solve this problem. And that is where they reach the innate wisdom within them.
That insight comes from nowhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah, from the divine source.
Divine source.
Whether it is the benzene molecule or radium or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So but it does not come till you exhausted everything you have.
And that's when you find that reservoir.
That's when you find that reservoir.
I just want to go back to the expectations from others, because that is a source of great unhappiness in a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely.
Is how do they start to master them? How do they start to insulate themselves from that so that they are not constantly buffeted by those expectations?
See, in a basic spiritual mode, your expectation is always directed towards you. The arrow is coming towards you.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And that will always cause unhappiness. Always.
Right. And it does. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
In the spiritual mode, arrow changes the direction and it is from you to others. And that's where the joy comes in. When you serve somebody, when you help somebody sick or you help somebody who is miserable, then the joy is within you.
So the fulfillment of the expectation from within
Right.
is more joyful than merely fulfilling someone else's
Right.
expectation.
See, I don't know whether we have enough time for this quick story.
Yeah.
There was a very bright attorney. He got married to his love of his life, and it so happened that they were blessed with a little baby, and they were traveling together with a 6-year-old baby and mother and this attorney. They met with this accident, and it so happened that father and daughter survived, but the mother passed away. And this man got so distraught, and because that was everything for him, and he became bitter. And his bitterness reflected in his business practices. So he became so lopsided negotiator. He was in acquisition and mergers. He would always make such a lopsided, unfair deal with whoever he dealt with. People started fearing him because of his skills, and he was genius. So one day he had a big deal with a Japanese firm. He was representing an American firm, and he's getting his coffee and getting ready. His 6-year-old girl comes, Patty, has put her hand on his shoulder and said, "Dad, you forgot." And he looks at him. He loved her very much. He says, "What did I forget?" Says, "See, you forgot." Say, "What did I forget, my dear?" Says he, "My birthday." And being the attorney he was on his feet, he said, No, I didn't, although he had forgotten completely. So, no, I was going to surprise you, come with a Snoopy ice cream cake and your balloons and all that. That's all planned. I was going to surprise you. And the Rosie, his housekeeper, says, "Sir, don't lie to this poor child. You're never home on time. You're never going to be home. This isn't." And so she also says, "Dad, you're never going to be home." No, believe me, I'm going to be home. I promise you I'll be home. So he goes through this negotiation, and it so happened that it was what he could not expect from Japanese. They don't even, they keep on sipping chai and tea and don't decide anything.
Right.
They exhausted him, and the deal was very lopsided, and he was coming out of this thing, and suddenly it was 8:30. I said, "Oh my God, I couldn't make it." And he was crossing the road, and there is a car coming, full light. It was a December night. And there's a shadow of a person going on the road. And his impulses grabbed him. He said, "Man, are you blind? Can't you see this?" And this man takes out a chit from his pocket, and the chit says that this man can't see, can't hear, and can't talk. But once in a while, he drifts away. This is his address. If you find him, bring him here. He said, "Oh, look, man, I don't have time for this. I'm already late." And he's grumbling, but then he realized this man can't hear anything. So he found himself taking him home. And this guy was shivering, so he even gave his $10,000 cashmere overcoat to him to wear, to go there. And now he's finally coming to his car, and then he says, "Oh my God, I'm really glad that I saved his life. And here I was even thinking of not doing that. So now he's driving home and his mind is going, my God, I'm really glad that I saved his life. And then suddenly a voice inside comes, did you save his life or did he save your life? And now he goes home and his daughter has gone to sleep crying. His housekeeper is waiting there and says, sir, this is not right. This is not done. He said, you know, I had an amazing experience and this is what happened. And suddenly when he was telling the story, he felt the hand of his daughter. She said, Dad, you really saved this man's life? He said, yes. He says, this is the best birthday gift I've ever received. And then she says, can I still have my birthday gift? He said, anything you want. He said, could you take me to that man who has given me my dad back? So when we do these unconditional things, that's the real joy which comes in us.
Wow, that was just beautiful. Thank you for sharing this wonderful story, and thank you for explaining how to manage expectations in our life. Thank you very much for joining us. that you all were just as moved by the story as I was, and I'm sure you are going to have a lot of questions. Can we have some questions from the floor?
I have a question on good leadership. You mentioned as a leader, we need to have people bring out the better than the best, right? But if that individual or individuals themselves don't know what best is, or if they have a mental block, or if they are not honest with themselves, how do you exploit or explore their talents so that they realize what their full potential is?
So there are two kinds of leaderships. A leadership which requires crutches, means title, they have to be elected, they have to be appointed, and those kind of leaders are really pseudo leaders. The true leader is a leader who leads herself or himself from within. They lead themselves. Because you cannot lead others. It is only by leading yourself that you lead others. Now, if you remember, Mahatma Gandhi was never elected to any position. He never had a title. Yet he was able to lead millions of people. And so, true leadership, once you realize that you are leading yourself, it is through by leading yourself properly that you lead others. And when you lead yourself, who in you is leading and what in you is being led has to be clearly understood. If you don't understand that who in you is capable of leading and what in you requires leading, in absence of that, your insecurity, your fear, your greed, your ego ends up leading you. And that's what happens. So the true leader within us is again that power within us. The true you is that power. And once that power begins to lead you, it is a selfless leading. It is always going to lead to add the highest value. It is not interested in trophies and medals. It is always interested in adding the highest value, making the best. So that is where that true leadership comes. Leadership is not skills. Leadership is this clear understanding who in you leads what in you. Darshan?
Yeah, I think that as Bhai Sahib said correctly, if you are able to connect to the divinity within and from that point work outwards, work externally, then I don't think you need any crutches. As he mentioned, you are going to do your best. And the interesting thing is, and I think you can relate to this, I'm sure, that anyone who behaves like that is automatically seen as the leader, whether it is in the boardroom, whether it is in a staff meeting, whether it is in a math class,
Or whether he's a janitor.
or whether he's a janitor. And in fact, there is a movie like that, right? A Matt Damon movie. So if you are leading from within, I think the world sees it, the world senses it, and the world recognizes it.
And it's not intimidating. It is full of people gravitate towards that type of a person. They want to work with him. They want to be part of him or her. So that is the secret of true leadership. And in absence of that, all other leaderships are going to be infested by insecurity, fear, greed, and ego. And that's what you see. And to carry that, you need to have a title, or otherwise, and that's why once the title is gone, nobody asks who he is or she is. They become just the ordinary people.
I think that I'm sure you would agree that there are a lot of people in this world who are seeking that because the divine within them is attracted to this manifestation of divinity in someone else. and we are all trying to be trying to understand this great math genius in your class, and you want to understand how does he do it, how does he get 100 out of 100, or in a business setting, someone who stays calm in the middle of turmoil. And there are people who want to emulate that, the people who gravitate towards such a person and try to learn, how do you do that, how did you do that? So I think you by example can spread that far and wide, more than just titles or executive summaries or edicts.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the next question.
So, talking about expectation, I know it's a very ideal situation to expect more from yourself and try to do better and better, or better than your best. But in real life, in day-to-day situation, you are kind of expecting from people around you to deliver, whether it's a pilot landing a plane, whether it's a doctor treating you, whether it's a teacher teaching your child, So, how can you, I mean, what would you say about that? That how can you,
Well,
deal with this?
the way the society is run is basically constructed to run on carrot and stick principle. If you don't do this, you'll be fired. You don't have a job, you'll starve. If you do your job well, you'll get a bonus. So it's the same way we treat animals. We are really utilizing the same methodology as reward and punishment.
Reward and punishment.
So that thought process, that mindset can never produce excellence. It always produces mediocrity at best. And mediocrity, believe it or no, is the biggest stress on our society. Because first of all, the person who produces mediocrity has no inner satisfaction. They are basically, that's why they can't wait to retire. The job, a lot of people say, I hate my job. I have to work.
Yeah.
So that is what we have produced in our society. And job has become the most sophisticated form of slavery. We have enslaved people, educated people, intelligent people, without making them realize the purpose of life is to add the highest value. That's where their growth lies, that's where their euphoria lies, that's where their joy lies, that's where they are. And then our industrial revolution basically created robots.
Automatons.
We created human beings as robots. And that's why we are facing right now a massive layoffs, because a lot of these jobs will be replaced by machines. And again, we are getting back to that point that what human beings were created. They were not created by nature as a robotic people. They were created to think, original thinkers. And thinking does not come in us until we are vested in adding the highest value. Because that's where we are forcing ourselves to think. That's where we are reconnecting the power within us. And that is where our true joy lies. I don't know whether I answered your question or not.
Don't you, suppose you expect excellence from your child,
Right.
the child will strive for excellence. Don't you think that is the case?
Yeah, but instead of expecting from child, which is going to put pressure on the child, look at the number of suicides committed in India, because we are expecting our children to clear the competitive exam so that they can enter a admission in a college or get. So Instead of expectation, if we say that make your better best and help them how do you get there, then automatically they will begin to enjoy. They will be vested in their, they can't stay away from what they are doing.
I think you packed so much in that answer. I just want to reiterate certain points. One thing you said was mediocrity makes you unhappy. And that is innately true because mediocrity is not the expression of the divine. Divine is not mediocre. So when you are behaving in a mediocre way, it is in conflict with your divinity. That's why you are unhappy.
You cannot engage your divinity in that process of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Your divinity only gets engaged when you are part in excellence.
Right. Second thing you said was we have turned jobs into a robotic activity, and as such, artificial intelligence is going to eliminate those robotic activities. So the only way really to preserve your job is to act in the divine mode, because artificial intelligence cannot overcome divinity.
Right.
So if you are working, and if you are, say, really a key leader in the mold that Bhai Saab mentioned, well, no artificial intelligence is removing your job. In fact, you are highly needed and you are highly valued, because no computer can do what you can do.
So
And go ahead.
So the other side of adding the highest value is it takes you out of the mold of either a doctor or an engineer or a particular mold, because every situation requires a different kind of understanding and talent. So you're constantly in the student mode, and you're constantly bringing that intelligence onto that spot to add the highest value. So there is constant learning involved in this, constant upgrading involved in this, which is what makes you feel better. So you are never become obsolete. Because you are not an engineer, you are not a doctor. Those designations are obsolete. The only thing you are is a highest value adding entity. So now you figure out every situation is different. So how do you add the highest value? What kind of skills are going to be required? And then you're always going to use your oneness, means you're not alone. So you're going to always assemble a team to do at the highest value. So that's,
I think what you mentioned, I want to specifically take off on that with the question of if you don't expect a certain thing out of your children, will they not, how will they deliver? And the question has a fallacy in that the children are not achieving because you expected it. The children are achieving because of their own drives and desires. And if you didn't expect it, it is quite likely that they would do much better than what you're expecting. And Bhai Saab has spoken about his mother often, and I can say that my mother did not expect me to get this rank. I can truly say, Bhai Saab, my father has never looked at my grade papers, whether I got first rank or 50th rank or whatever rank I got. And I had a tremendously joyful childhood without being buffeted by those expectations. And I hear that about you all the time and about your mother. So I think that, and finally I like to make this point that a lot of people, and myself included, we use the expectations that others are not fulfilling as a way to not fulfill my own expectation.
yes.
As a way to escape it mentally. Well, he didn't do this, she didn't do this, so why should I do that? We are involved in a joint exercise of some kind, and I will just blame everybody else. well, he didn't do that job, she didn't do that job, so why should I do that job? And so many times this expectations from others is a crutch that we use to not fulfill our own expectations and what we need to do. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and thank you for your questions. I hope you have enjoyed today's program.